Now let's extend out our arms. So before we do that, let's kind of move up the head a little bit. Let's move up the body overall. So we're going to jump back to object mode. Remember, we can hit tab as well. If we don't have it selected, we can select that and we can just move it straight up. So it's kind of sitting on the ground. We can jump back into edit mode and then we go to points and let's come to wireframe. I'm just going to select all of those and kind of move this down a little bit. And let's grab this one and kind of move this up. So he's got kind of a little bit of a bump there. And let's actually move this up a little bit more. And we can start to even select, some of these points, move those down a little, and just give his body a little bit more shape. Now here, I want to take this whole head and just move it up a little bit. So give it a little bit more room here. Okay. And then I want to come in and add a few more loops in here. So we'll use Control R to add a new loop kind of right in there. And we can kind of move this up a little bit. Come in here and kind of move that. And I do want to have a little bit more of a line right there so it's not completely smooth. So I'll hit Control R again and let's add one kind of right down there. I'll kind of move this one down a little bit. Okay. Now we want to be able to, we don't want this to be so low res. Our end result we want to be smooth, so we can actually add another modifier. So we'll go back to object mode. You can see our mirror modifier here. We can minimize that and see it's still active. We can turn off the modifier just by hitting the little eye icon there. Let's add another modifier. This time we'll add a subdivision surface. And you can see we can set the subdivisions in the view and the render. Right now we're just concerned about the view, so we can make this nice and smooth. And it shows you what that'll look like. You can turn off the effect of it by hitting the little eye. But then you can kind of get an idea, okay, I need to add a little bit more shape to this. So we can go to edit mode and you can see that the kind of framework is right there. So I can come in and grab just those points there. And maybe I want to have, these points come more down to the ground a little bit. Let me deselect those. And then maybe right here, these will kind of come down. So we can really start to, add a little bit of shape. If we want to come in and add another loop, we can see how that kind of tightens up the shape of it. So we get a nice stylized sort of shape. We can do the same thing here. Okay, and at any time we can turn off that eye and it just deactivates that temporarily. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to pull out some sort of arms for this character. So it kind of some front arms that'll kind of come out and kind of sit on the floor. So we can kind of decide, where we want those to come from. I want them to come from a nice square polygon. So I'm thinking something along the lines of kind of right in here. Now, if we want this to be nice and tight when we smooth it, we want to make sure that there's a loop going around before we actually extrude it out. So in this case, I would hit I first to do a little bit of an inset. And then we could hit E and start to extrude this out. And kind of bring this down. Okay, we can kind of rotate it. If we hit R, that'll allow us to rotate, or we can hit this little icon here, and then we can use each axis to rotate. S will allow us to scale this down. And then if we hit E again, we can do another extrude, and you can see that arm extending over on the other side. Okay, and here we can kind of scale that up a little and rotate it. Let's hit E again and extrude it down. And it's starting to get kind of right down on the ground there. So we can start to get something like that. Now we can start to look at making this foot a little bit bigger, so we can kind of take these polygons right out here. And we want to extrude them. Remember though, we want to extrude this time along the vertex normal to pull it out along the normals. So we can do kind of something like that. Now I'd like to extrude out some individual toes. So if we do extrude individual, that will allow us to extrude each of these faces individually. Then we can come in here and kind of scale those down a little bit. And then we can grab, if you want to grab each individual face, let's actually do that. Just grab the face. And then we can kind of pull it forward. And we can come in here and kind of scale it down a little bit. And we can do the same thing here and here. And then anytime we do this, it's probably a good idea to come in and start to kind of move the points around. So just spend a little bit of time adding some, give them some love to this. So we can kind of pull this down. We want it to be kind of flat on the ground. And then we can also come in here, grab these points and start to pull those down so it's nice and smooth. The transition is. Okay, just spend a little time with that. Now when we smooth it, this is going to be, let's go back to object mode. This is going to be really smooth right here. And so if we want to actually see a little bit of that elbow, then we want to make sure to add extra edges there. So here we can come in and let's go into wireframe. And we can select our points. If we go into edit mode. Let's hit S and we'll just kind of scale this down. Control R. And I'm just going to add a couple of edges on either side of that. So it allows us to bend it. If we want to add a little bit more shape to the arm, we can come in here and add that in. And then hit S really quickly to kind of scale it. And we can do the same thing down here. Click, drag it into position, S to kind of scale it. Go back to object mode and we can kind of see that. Okay? And then if you want to kind of define those feet a little bit better, let's come into edit mode. If you want to make the feet a little bit flatter, when you add edges close to other edges, when you smooth it, it serves to kind of tighten that up. So you can see now it's kind of flat there. Okay, if you wanted to kind of tighten up the shape of it, you can add those edges in. And you could do the same thing here. If you want to tighten up the kind of this area, so it's not so soft, you could come in here and add an edge right in there. And you can see that that sort of tightens things up. Okay, so spend a little bit of time tweaking your little arms there. And then in the next lesson, we'll come in and start to build some eye stalks.